Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for joining today. We're just going to wait a couple minutes so that everyone is able to join. Hello, everyone. As you're joining, we'll just wait a few more minutes so that everyone has time to join, and we'll start when the numbers start to even out a bit. Thank you for coming.
Hello.
Hello. I'm just going to turn off your camera for a moment just so that I can introduce the webinar, and then I'll have you turn it on again when we get started.
And while you're doing that, Craig, rename yourself.
All right. Welcome, everyone. We're going to get started now. Thank you for coming to the latest webinar in the Caring for the Caregiver webinar series. This series is hosted by the Massachusetts Executive Office of Elder Affairs. This is the third featured webinar co-hosted by the Office of Economic Empowerment, which is a department of the Massachusetts State Treasury. Our last two webinars focused on estate planning basics and probate for caregivers. My name is Amanda Brown, and I am a program associate at the Office of Economic Empowerment. I work on our financial education initiatives, so I'm thrilled to hear from our presenters today on financial wellness for caregivers. Just to go over the basic agenda and a few housekeeping items before we get started, we'll begin with a presentation from Tom Alessi and Craig Richardson of the ARIES Foundation for Financial Education. Then we'll have time for Q&A at the end, and we'll try to wrap up by 12:45. As a reminder, you can put questions in the chat or the Q&A box where you can submit anonymously. And it's important for us to disclose that since this is hosted by a government agency, the chat itself is subject to public record laws and is not anonymous, but you are still able to submit questions through the Q&A feature anonymously if you would prefer. The webinar is also being recorded. The transcription feature is on right now, but you can disable it for yourself by clicking on the caption button. And now I'm excited to turn it over to Tom and Craig at the ARIES Foundation.
Amanda, thank you very much. Appreciate the introduction and appreciate you having us here today. Real quick, we're just going to go through is caring for the caregiver, financial wellness, and being in control of what matters most is how we sort of laid this out. We do want to go through a little bit of the agenda that we're going to be talking about, but before you do that, some of the housekeeping that Amanda had mentioned. One, if you do have any questions, please use the chat box. We'll try to answer them as we go along, but just know we will hang out until at the end. So any Q&A that happens, as long as necessary, we'll be here to answer questions. Got to go through a brief introduction to us. Amanda just mentioned us. We'll give you a little detail. We're going to talk about the 5 questions around financial wellness, what Craig and I call saving versus spending, sort of, how to look at what you're doing. Being smart with any goal planning, and then some care for the caregiver thoughts and ideas and considerations to take with that. So on that note, as Amanda said, my name is Tom Alessi. I am the president of the ARIES Foundation. I have been in financial services for 25. I'm in my 25th year now. I'm an investment advisor. That means I act as a fiduciary whenever giving guidance or advice to any of my clients. I want to bring my Vice President in. Craig, if you can introduce yourself.
Sure. So I'm Craig Richardson. I'm the Vice President of the ARIES Foundation. I've been in financial services a little over 20 years now. And my goal is to work with families and individuals to help them to find their financial goals and have a better relationship with their money.
And Craig will be chiming in as we go through this presentation. He's also here to man the chat box. So like I said, if you do have questions, drop them in there. If he can get to them as we're going in the presentation, we will. Otherwise, as we said, we'll hang out until the end and try to get as many answered as possible. So Amanda mentioned this is the ARIES Foundation for Financial Education. We're a nonprofit. You can find us on the web at ariesfoundation.org. The mission behind ARIES is trying to help everyone have a better relationship with their money, because whether you realize it or not, you are in a relationship with your money. And just like every other personal relationship that you have, there are behaviors and triggers that can cause us to act, well, a little irrationally sometimes when we're dealing with our finances. That's all myself, Craig, Melanie, who's on the call, the ARIES Foundation team tries to do is help everyone sort of take a step back, take a little bit of that emotion out. And that's sort of what we're going to be talking about today with the whole topic of financial wellness. Because when we start there, financial wellness, right, what is it anyway? Right, Craig, when you look at financial wellness, you can Google it or ask somebody, and you're going to get like a variety of different answers and topics, right, as far as financial wellness is concerned.
Absolutely. I think when we're looking here is just to kind of talk about, having a handle on your finances and heading in a positive direction.
Right. And for us, for Craig and I, what we really boil it down to is sort of like we said, these sort of 5 questions or 5 directions when we're dealing with financial wellness in terms of what it means, or whether or not it's a sense of, like Craig said, being in control. And that first one is, do you feel confident or in control with your money? Because a lot of times, Craig, what we hear is, oh, I'm not good with money, right? or it's not something that I'm really comfortable with. And, money management, finances, this is, it's a skill. It's not something that we're innate or able to do. It's something that we have to continue to work at, Craig, really.
Yeah, you're not built with an instinct on this. I mean, this is just the way our society functions as far as trying to determine, how goods and services are related to one another. And so once again, it's a skill that's sometimes it's just isn't taught. Some families it's not even talked about. So you kind of, a lot of times behind the 8 ball, just getting started.
And then some of that is just because a lot of times when we don't feel that, like we feel, oh, wait, I don't really know about that, or I'm inexperienced, or I'm not comfortable dealing with it. Well, that's what makes us feel less in control. Mm-hmm. So a lot of it is just trying to take some early steps to say, what do I really don't feel confident about, or what do I really not feel control with? And maybe I can try to do something to make myself better at it, or just take some steps to get in control of it, Craig.
Absolutely. You got to start somewhere.
You have to start somewhere in terms of that getting on the road and getting on the right path. So that's the first one. The second one, and we say this as, spending habits in line with your values. Mm-hmm. Well, part of that really comes to, and I want to say this a little bit as almost like, not to say, hey, guilt-free spending, but a lot of times what happens is we're thinking about, oh, I have a goal or something that I'm trying to achieve. And then I went and spent money on something that was nowhere near or close to that goal, or it took away from that thing I was trying to achieve. And now I feel guilty about it. And so, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I was going to say, I talked to a lot of families, and they'll start talking about what their values are and what's important to them and what they want to see happen for themselves, whether that's, buying a home, or, if something happens to them, their family's all set. And then you find out that they're spending, where they're putting the money is nowhere near in line with what they're telling me their value set is. And so it's really about trying to realign those money so they're supporting what your values are.
Right. And it's also trying to make sure that how you're spending, where you're spending, is doing it in a way that's comfortable for you, like Craig said, sort of in line with those values. And, again, it goes back to about a little bit of being in control, because that's the idea here. It's we're going to spend. And, one thing with ARIES is we are never going to tell anyone how to spend their money. We're going to come to it in a little bit, go through, why we spend our money. But in some of it is just trying to get a handle on that. How does that align with what I'm trying to achieve? The next one is, I think this probably should have been the lead off, right, Craig? This really should have been the first one, which is, can you cover an emergency? And so, when we talk to individuals or we talk to families, it's always about having money built up in an emergency reserve. As a caregiver, it's not only thinking of this as emergency reserve for you, but it's emergency reserve to cover that need or that expense that might come up as the caregiver. I'm sure you found yourself in times and situations where it's like, well, okay, I need extra money for the groceries or something that's coming up that you've got to try to say, well, I've got to cover that. what is the statistic, Craig? It's like the average American is like 50% of the population or something doesn't have $1,000 in the bank or something.
Oh yeah, it's like, yeah, 50% of Americans have less than probably $500 in savings for an emergency to
And
cover.
so, you know, one of the first things that we always talk to everybody about is making sure that we're building up an emergency reserve account. And that emergency reserve account is, you know, and the picture is there for that, because it really should be something that's set aside and separate. This should not be in a checking account. It should not be accessible by a debit card. It should have to be like, I got to get this money, but it's for an emergency purpose only. So it's set aside in something that's, I've got to break glass to get to, like a money market or a CD or something like that, where, Craig, it's put aside and separate, so I don't, not tempted to spend it on a regular basis.
Yeah, because if it's just part of your floating balance, then you end up spending it on things that aren't necessarily an emergency. And unfortunately, what a lot of people use right now is, you know, revolving debt or credit cards as their actual emergency reserve. So,
you know, and so our industry tells people they should have 3 to 6 months of basic living expenses. You know, for Craig and I, coming out of the pandemic, we were telling everybody, and still do, that, you know, to have target, you know, 6 weeks of basic expenses to start. Yes, we want to build from there, but we know what's happening. And so for you as a caregiver, you know, there should be some of that thought of, I've run into this. I've had to dip into, you know, cover some expense. So there should be, you know, whatever that number needs to be building towards that. And I think that's one of the ways to sort of think of this as this is money that's set aside, whether it's for me or for the person I'm giving care to cover that.
Yep.
You know, are you keeping your spending in check? And, you know, this isn't so much, hey, you've got to be watching everything. And we'll talk about that towards the end about, you know, being better with money and going through it. But it's like, if I'm saying that I'm trying to spend towards a certain goal, well, then I want to make sure I am staying on track to do that. And I'm not just spending wildly or spending out of control on you know, a over by over basis, correct?
yeah, and I don't think, you know, you said earlier, it's not, we don't care what you spend your money on. The issue is, do you know what you're spending your money on? And is it important to you? I mean, sometimes we live in a plastic world, right? You're not pulling cash out of your wallet anymore. And so, you know, they make it easier and easier for you to spend your money, make it more and more, they call it convenient for you to spend your money, right? So sometimes you don't even realize, you know, I spent $150 on coffee this month. Or, you know, I spent, you know, $200 on, you know, paid subscriptions that I'm watching or not watching. And these can be, you know, money drains that you're just not, it's just going down the drain and you don't even know where it's going because you're just not paying attention.
Right. And really the idea is, once you start doing this, is to be constantly looking at it and tracking it. You know, and one of the things that we do with this, when we say the last one, when we talk about financial wellness, right, is are you being truthful in your relationship with your money, right? Because sometimes we say to ourselves, oh, you know what, I've got a budget, I have it, but are you sticking to it? Are you staying within it? Or are, as well, yeah, the numbers are there, but you know what, this month, Greg, this thing came up or that thing came up, so I had to do it. Or like you said, I went to Starbucks, I needed that latte type of thing.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that happens, you know, especially when you're still in your working years, is, well, next week's paycheck is coming. So even if things went awry this week, you know, I got another check coming in. Or, right, you know, the big thing this year is everybody's looking for, you know, tax time, and you're going to get those refund checks. So help you make up for those missteps.
And then Craig mentioned, you know, the idea with plastic here and the ability to just push a button and have stuff show up on my doorstep from Amazon, you know, gets us a little bit crazy in terms of how we're spending, because we're not really seeing it. We're not really feeling it at the time. It's one of the benefits of using cash, because I have to part with it. I have to take it out of my wallet or my purse and spend it. And so plastic has a little bit of disconnect, Craig, with reality for some of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you said, the one button thing. You know, I think the other day the cop showed up at my door to do a wellness check because there was no Amazon on my stuff for 3 days, right?
Christmas now.
Wait a minute, you didn't order for 3 days. What's going on there? Yeah, so you're absolutely right. It's just, it's marketing. It's, it's everything. All the big things are out there against you that you should have it now. You deserve to have it now. Why should you wait? All that is making you, like I said, be more convenient to separate you from your money.
Right. And we talk about it with when dealing with it in what we call wants versus needs, and really sort of trying to take that step back and say, well, I don't really need to buy it today. Can I hold off for a day or two and then come back? And if I have the same luster or same need, okay. But can I just hold off where I'm not, so focused on having to buy it immediately? And then the last one, and for Greg and I, we sort of talk about this with social media as an aspect to it. This whole what used to be known as like keeping up with the Joneses, that trying to keep pace with the neighborhood or whatever. But I think social media pushes this even farther, right? We see people buying things or taking trips or doing stuff with the kids, and suddenly we get caught up in that.
Yeah.
Why am I not doing it?
Mm-hmm. Why am I not in Italy drinking vino? Right.
Right. These are things that as you go along, to sort of try to talk to yourself and say, wait, I'm spending this. Should I spend this? Do I need to spend this? What's the reason behind my wanting to spend this? And, it's more of that trying to get in tune, because ultimately there's a goal that you're trying to get to. And we'll talk about goals in a little bit, but these are things that take away from those goals. They derail us. They put us into a situation that doesn't allow us to do or save for some of the things that we want to achieve, which is ultimately the goal that we're trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so now we get into saving versus spending. And, for Craig and I, it truly is, for those who don't know, that's Mad Magazine. It's Spy versus Spy. This is an old cartoon that used to occur in there. But for us, it is this duality that goes on with everybody. Every single day, you're having this sort of pull or push between the two. Should I be saving? Should I be spending? I want to be living now. I want to be enjoying myself, but I know I have to save for something in the future. So we have this back and forth that goes on every single day, this tug of war that everybody has, Greg, right?
Yeah, absolutely, because you're trying to find that balance. I mean, you hear some people who are fantastic savers. They have the first nickel they ever made. But at the same time, they're not enjoying any of the money that they're saving. And then you have other people who are, living paycheck to paycheck, but they seem to be enjoying themselves all the time. But if the paycheck stops, they're in a deep issue, right? So the issue is trying to find the balance between where you should savings and spending and enjoying yourself today and having it for tomorrow.
Yeah, and the way we sort of talk about it is, you can't save until you know what you are spending. So you really can't say, I want to, save for this or put this money away or do that until you actually know what's being spent by you on a monthly, annual basis. And, what really trips most people up is that the reverse is also true. Is that you really shouldn't be saving until you know what you want to be saving. I mean, you really shouldn't be spending until you know what you want to be saving, right? So I really have to or should have a goal set up, whatever it is you're trying to do. Like we talked about, maybe it's just building up that emergency reserve. Maybe it's trying to save for, the next transportation, a car, whatever the case may be. Maybe it's a home, maybe it's retirement, whatever the situation is, to have that defined, Craig. And that's really what we try to talk to everybody about, is having that goal and then working back from there, because you really can't do it without knowing what's being spent on a regular basis.
Yeah, and once again, this goes back to our very first slide about having control over your finances. The issue is you start saving, saying that's great, but then you don't realize you're spending, and then you're pulling from your savings, and there's kind of this negative thing happening or neutral thing happening. Nothing's really moving. So sometimes saving can be, I have surplus that I don't put away, and if I did, I wouldn't actually spend it. Or sometimes saving is saying, look, I actually have to make some sacrifices to make this happen because I'm spending up to my limits. So that's why you got to get a handle on that before you can start changing your trajectory.
Right. And so just so you know, when we say, hey, be better with money, one of the things that we talk to, everybody about, ARIES, we trumpet this all the time, is we don't really like to use the B word. And by that, we mean budget. You look up financial planning, you look up financial wellness, everybody's going to tell you to do a budget. And what happens for most people is a budget is it becomes daunting. It becomes this challenge. It almost feels restrictive, like you're telling me where to spend my money. You're telling me what to do. And this is sort of what Craig and I were saying, is that we're never, ever going to tell somebody how to spend your money. All we want you to ever do is to be aware of where you're spending your money and why. Why did we spend it on that item or this item, or what was the reasoning behind it? And it's as you start to do that and start to think about, gee, why did I spend this? Why did I want this? You start to get this disconnect with, wait a minute, maybe that was just a want and I didn't really need it. And so now I can think of, maybe I could use that money someplace else, Craig, like building up a savings account or, retirement plan or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, absolutely. Once again, we're kind of going over the same things, but it's really important to do that because, this is small steps. The big step is the first step is just knowing where your money's going. And, we don't use the B word because it feels like math. And I get a lot of people go, well, I don't math, right? But you do spend, so.
So you do need to have an understanding of where the money is, the money that's coming in and the money that's going out. We call it cash flow. It's more like operating a business than a budget, but it's the same concept. I've got to know the money I have coming in and all the money that's going out. So I have a handle on that. Once I have that handle, now I can start to plan.
Yep.
And that's sort of the baseline for it, because as a caregiver, what's happening for most caregivers, right? So this is what we call the double whammy to finances of a caregiver. The average age of a caregiver today is 49.2 years old. And here's the thing with that age, this is at a time, right as we start turning into our 50s, that, the kids are gone. And now I can start allocating, more towards my plan, my goals, retirement, whatever it might be, Craig, right? In that situation.
Yeah, like I said, there's different stages that people go through financially and with their life. And like I said, a lot of times by 49 years old, if you're going to have children, you've had them. Maybe they're even in college or through it. And so now you're changing gears and going, well, okay, now I'm 15, 17 years away from retirement. Now I'm going to start trying to catch up on that savings. And actually, they have this thing called the catch-up provision. That's what we refer to it as. When you turn 50, so you can actually put more money away. So that's what Tom's talking about, just that change in time. And that's when those things tend to occur.
Right. But as a caregiver, if it's a caregiver and you are doing this for a family member, this can then also mean it's time off from work, time away from work. In some cases, that's taking away from my earning ability, which is another drop into it. We talked about the expenses, like the fact that caregiving can also come with an additional expense. And sometimes that additional expense, unfortunately, means I don't have the money. I have to turn to one of my allocations, one of my places. And so, sometimes, Craig, that's the retirement account. And so we've got people who are taking money out because I've got to deal with handling things for mom or dad or what family member that needs care.
Right. I mean, planning for the future sounds all good until you're in crisis mode trying to deal with today. And like you said, if you're trying to do both, the physical care of somebody and also the financial needs of somebody at the same time, it can be draining on you in many different ways. Like you said, you may not, hurt you financially because you can't work. So you hurt your earning capacity or additional expenses, which are hurting your spending capacity. So you got to look at that from different angles for different people.
Right, which is why it's important to get a handle on your own spending, your own goals as far as dealing with that, because you can get caught up in this and not realize it. And next thing you know, 4 or 5 years have gone and we've really lost a lot of that earning power, a lot of that additional savings power that was available to us.
Absolutely. I mean, it's always a good time to try to get your financial life in order, to have a better, grip on your finances. Waiting until you're actually in a position like this just makes it even more daunting. So if you can get ahead of that, it's going to make everything a little bit easier. Not easy, but a little easier.
Yes. And Craig had mentioned already debt, right? So, debt, money issues, this is right now the number one stress concern for most adults today, right? And, getting caught up or behind with money is what's really dragging a lot of families down. There's, as Craig said, because there isn't a savings or emergency reserve, the only place I can go to fund that is through the credit card, which is creating debt. And now I've got to try to get out of that. And so this idea of making sure that you are aligning your spending with what you're trying to achieve, that's why we said that's a big part of it, because not letting those ancillary or other discretionary expenses get out of control, Craig, is really, I think, the best way to review that.
Yeah, and not all debt is bad. I mean, if you're trying to buy a house, you're typically not buying it cash. You might be, right? You're buying a car, people finance a car. The issue is when you have debt that now is getting away from you. The interest rates are climbing faster than you're paying it off, or you have emergencies come up that you have to put debt on that you weren't expecting, or things are coming due that you would put off. And now you're not sure how to handle that as part of your regular budget. So that's when debt really becomes the crippling agent, and that's when you want to be making sure you're getting ahead of it.
Right, and from the point of a caregiver, right? So whereas money, debt is creating stress, it also can take away from the other thing that we're trying to do. If we're focused on, oh, I'm worried about my finances, I'm worried about my money, we might miss some things that we're doing from the caregiver standpoint. So it's important to know everybody deals with debt, right? So, and everybody deals with it differently, but there are strategies, there are ways, there are different things that we, Craig and I teach people about how to get out of debt and different ways to do it that, helps make you feel a little bit more in control of the number than just being like I'm just overwhelmed and I can't think about it. And next thing you know, that stress level just gets overwhelmed and we get anxiety and depression that go along with it. So 5 tips for financial wellness, right? So the first one is really trying to track. We mentioned that about keeping yourself in check, but it's recording what you're spending. Now, a lot of us, because of plastic, Craig, have a dedicated thing that tells us every month, this is what we spent it on.
Well, if we look at it, yes.
Yeah, if you look at it, exactly. Instead of just opening it up and see when I open the bill, is to go through and look at, gee, this is what I spent on everything. But we're coming up at a good time of the year for this, because you will have all of your expenses for the year, right? So you're going to have in a month, this is what I spent in 2023. And to go back and look at and say, what did I spend it on? Like Craig said, was there a lot of lattes going on in there? Or, was it just I'm getting through my daily routine in terms of dealing with everything? And then try to figure out how you're going to make or adjust that spending, those changes into 2024. So it's a great time to be taking the step back and saying, what did I spend this year? And how am I dealing with that? And, one of the tips we'd say to everybody is to treat yourself like a bill, right, Craig? Because we're very, very good at paying our bills.
We are, but we don't ever see ourselves as a bill. We see ourselves as if there's something left, then we'll put something away. And I think you really should be putting stuff away first, because that way, if you do have expenses, that you're building that emergency reserve, you're paying yourself, you should be the top priority.
Right. And so the way we usually describe this is to say, have those must pay expenses, right? You've got the rent or the mortgage, you've got the utility bills, and you have food in the home, not eating out, food in the home. These are must pay expenses. Whatever the spending is for that needs to be first. But next in line should be should be whatever it is you're trying to save for. And to that end, specifically, an emergency reserve fund should be put in that order there, like Craig said, to think of yourself, it's a bill that gets paid every month. I got to pay myself, whatever it is, $20, $25, $30, whatever you're doing, to Sky, got to build it up because it's a bill that's got to get paid.
Mhm.
And I know we use the B word here, but we couldn't think of anything else to use for it. So the budget for savings, when we talk, we're going to talk about the buckets in a second. We do a whole thing on filling buckets. That's our analogy for it. And going through about where to be putting or what to be putting away and what that's for. Because often and too often what happens is people think of I've got money in the bank, so that's for everything. And the problem is we don't dedicate certain portions of that money to what it should be for. So we often talk about spreading that out for dealing with it, but we'll go through the buckets in a second. And I know this sounds like what is that, Captain Obvious, Craig?
Yes, absolutely. Captain Obvious.
Douche spending. Yeah, I know. Everybody says that. But when we say it, we mean, find those line items, those larger line items that you, especially if we're trying to, get out of debt or reduce or build up some sort of a savings account, reduce those larger line items that we can do without today, that won't really take away from our overall well-being, who we are. Don't get into the minutia. Don't get into the small stuff, because if you really try to get into the nickels and dimes, you're going to drive yourself crazy in the beginning. Later on, as you get a handle on everything, you can do it. But for the most part, the idea is to go through what you're spending, like we said, where you're spending it and why you're spending it, and find some of those, like Craig mentioned, there might be some, some subscription service or streaming thing that you've got that you don't even use. That you're like, well, wait, I just had this. I just never thought about it. And, there's a line item that you can take out that frees up anywhere from like $8 to $15 a month.
Yeah, another thing people don't do, and I don't do it every year, but try to keep it on top of it, is your auto insurance. Do you reprice your auto insurance? Do you reprice your homeowner's insurance? I mean, you're getting the same benefit, but sometimes because you went to a new provider, you can pay a lot less money. So don't just go arbitrarily. Oh, okay, I'll just throwing it at it because it's easy. Know what you're spending your money on, and is there a better way to do the same thing?
And we're going to talk about goals in a second, but when we talk about goals, setting a goal is a larger goal. The tip here is to have small goals to get you to that larger goal. So have a smaller goal that says, if I'm trying to save $1,000 over the year, well, maybe it's I'm trying to get to, $250 by the end of the first quarter and $500 by the end of the second quarter, that type of thing, where you're sort of giving yourself markers to get to. It's sort of psychological. It's going to help you sort of trigger to that next step. Like, oh, I'm on my way. I've got a portion of it done, and now I can get there. But we'll talk about goal setting in a second.
Mm-hmm.
So the bucket strategy, and we talked, we mentioned this about saving. And so it's really about thinking, and our visual for everyone is buckets, right? You might be pools or bags or however you want to refer to money. For Craig and I, we always refer to it as buckets. So bucket number one is really that emergency reserve. And again, that's emergency reserve for you, but also in the case as a caregiver, those expenses that go along with being a caregiver. And this bucket really needs to get filled first. That's got to be there. And it should be, like we talked about, set aside and separate from your everyday checking or, something that you've got access with a debit card or can just easily get out. Because this should be set aside, Craig, just for that last minute emergency thing.
Absolutely. Like I said, it keeps you from having to go use the plastic in the case of an emergency.
And then bucket number two is mid-length. This would be anything that's from like 2 years to like 5 years out. So that's usually like I'm trying to, purchase a new car. Maybe I'm going to take a family vacation type of thing, and I'm setting money aside for that. And then bucket number three is those long-term financial goals, which for most people is I'm trying to buy a house, put the kid through college, or retire. So you have these different levels of the goals. And the problem is if we're funding or putting the money all in the same bucket, then we tend to take it out for different reasons where it's not really pegged or tagged to the goal that we had in mind. So that's why we sort of say separate it out, sort of think of I'm putting my emergency funding here. Maybe I'm saving for retirement. That's going into an employer retirement plan type of thing. But I also want to save for a vacation. So maybe I'll start another account here. And those have to go in. And usually, Craig, like the bank can help you like sort of, divvy that out once the money goes in through automatic savings.
Yeah, I love automatic saving. I was going to talk about that when you get into goals, because you don't have to think about it anymore. It's just like if you have money coming out of your check for your retirement account or any type of benefits that you're receiving, you get your net. So you don't really think about the gross income. You think about the net income you have left. So if you're automatically having this going every month, and you're not really thinking about it, it's an automatic. So I love that.
Yeah, and so we're going to be fun with you here, because obviously we're from Boston, so we get to be wicked smart with our goal planning in terms of going through it. But when we're setting goals, right? So the number one thing there is a goal without a plan is just a wish. So just understand that anytime we talk about whether it's financial goals, wellness goals, physical goals, whatever it might be, right? They need to have specific pieces that go along with it. And that is, they've got to be a specific goal, something that is definitely there for you. It's got to be measurable. I've got to be able to say, like I said, I'm trying to save $1,000. I got to be able to measure that, how I'm going to get there. It has to be attainable. So it's not like Craig was the one, we're always like, hey, in the beginning of the year, we got New Year's resolutions coming up, right? I want to lose weight this year. That is not a goal.
It's not?
No.
That's a wish.
I want to drop 10 pounds by June type of thing. That is a goal. Okay. A goal, if I want to lose weight is one, it's not specific. Two, you can't measure it. And losing weight becomes how am I attaining that and going through it. It's got to be relevant for you. It has to be meaningful for you, whatever the goal is. And again, this can be personal, professional. Again, we talk financial, it can be wellness, anything. It's got to be relevant for you, because if it's not relevant for you, you're not going to stick with it.
Yep.
That's the problem. And it has to be time-based. There's got to be a time limit on there, because otherwise, Greg, we just leave it open-ended and it goes on forever.
Right. So I never really failed. I just never completed it.
I just never completed it. Exactly. That's why, so for me, I don't make resolutions. I make little promises to myself that I can break every year, because I know that's what's going to happen. So you really have to have it's a goal in mind. How are you going to make it happen? What's it going to be? And when are you going to do it by? If you start thinking of goals this way, you'll get much easier to achieve them. And like I said, and then put little steps along the way. That's why you have it time-based, so you can track it and measure it.
Yeah, and in no small part, when you're trying to set up a goal, you're trying to do something different for yourself, whether that's losing weight or putting away money or whatever that goal is. So you're trying to change a habit. You're forming a new habit in order to achieve that goal. And habits are very difficult to change, good ones and bad ones. Right. So this is why people said, well, I failed my goal. I failed at my goal. Is, once you get started, you can have a goal buddy, someone to help you keep tabs with that. And so you can kind of focus, but never be afraid to restart. If you do fall down, you make that small promise and you break it, right? Make it again and reset yourself. Because once again, you're trying to form new habits, and it's really good to start small there. Don't give yourself 20 different goals and they're all huge. And so you're apt to fail before you even start.
Right. And so one of the things we did want to talk about was care for the caregiver, and compassion fatigue is definitely something, that comes up, whether that's due to, sadness, whether it's sleep problems, depression, getting angry, emotional, all of these are things that occur as a caregiver. Whether it's something that you're thinking about or no, exhaustion becomes another one. There are all of these different symptoms, and you just got to be aware of it, because your health is a main concern. We're mainly talking financial wellness here, but that wellness component is a piece to it. And you really do need to be thinking about, caring for yourself as a caregiver, because if you're not able to do it, then nobody will. And, so one of the things we always talk about with this is, having those routines that are available, whether it's just taking a short break, doing something to be able to seek out other people to help with the stress and cope with that, Greg, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes you just feel so in a bubble all by yourself when you're trying to care for somebody else. And then, there's this expectation that you should be able to manage everything. Well, I'm young enough, I'm healthy enough, why can't I just do it all? And then sometimes usually the guilt feelings that come with, you're angry, you don't want to do it. You don't want to have to do it. Or you feel, anger towards the person you're caring for. These are all natural things that everybody feels at one point or another. And the more support you have, the easier that's going to be. Like I said, you gotta take care of yourself too.
Right. Yeah, that is a big part of it, right? Don't forget about your own care needs as well. And we mention this only because the statistics are out there, and the reality is that 7 out of 10 people over the age of 65 are going to need some kind of assisted care. 40%, unfortunately, of the population believes that Medicare or health insurance is going to cover those assisted needs. And 20% of the population over the age of 65 who require support are going to need it for more than 5 years. This was one of the things that we came up as part of some other caregiver presentation, that once you begin as a caregiver, realize, Craig, that this can go on for years in terms of the role and the capacity of what you're dealing with.
Yeah, I mean, the nice thing about what's going on these days is because of all the advances in medicine, people are living longer. The negative part, though, is people living longer comes more care, right? They're not necessarily always living longer, healthier. And especially we talk about memory care issues with the longevity that are propping up all the time, dementia and
right,
Alzheimer's, those types of things. And so, yeah, people not only they need care, they need it longer than they ever did before.
Yeah, absolutely. And so what are the ways to cope, right? Exercise. And when we say exercise, that just means, going out for a walk, getting outside, walking the dog, taking a walk around the block, doing something that gets us moving, that gets us active, eating better. Let's face it, it's the whole sort of mantra with that. If I eat better, I'm going to be healthier. If I move, I'm going to be more active. I'm going to be healthier. But also be thinking, of mindfulness. This is something to be grateful. And, Craig and I try to find that every single day, is try to find something that we're grateful for, something that we're grateful about, thankful for, and reflect on that. Because like Craig said, sometimes we get caught up in this and we get emotional, we get upset, and we're sort of doing this tug with the person that we're trying to provide care for, when we can take a step back sometimes and just think, I'm grateful for being able to do this, or spending time, or whatever the case may be. Mm-hmm. And then, lastly is, do something that you enjoy. What the story I love is, we were at a assisted care community, and one of the residents literally had one of those karaoke machines, right? And blasting out John Denver's Country Roads Take Me Home. Not very well, but he was enjoying himself doing it and was having a blast. You could just see and just feel just how much fun he was having doing it, which just it just spread. You had to smile. It was just enjoy, but it was something that clearly that he was enjoying. Not that everybody else was enjoying it, but he was clearly enjoying it. Find something that brings that joy to you. Okay. So we do have a favor to ask of everybody. Craig, do you have that link for this?
I do. I'll drop it in just one second.
Drop it in the chat box. So we do a lot of these workshops and programs, not only with the state, with nonprofits, community support groups, and other corporations. And so we just ask for feedback from everybody. If you could take a moment, Craig's going to drop it in the chat box. If you got a phone, you can shoot the QR code. It'll open up the evaluation. It'll take you all of 2 minutes to do it. We would certainly appreciate it. Just know there's a yes or no checkbox on there. If you say no, you're never going to hear from us, just so we're clear. If you say yes, if you want to have a consultation or a meeting just to go over it or see if we can help you out in any way, just check yes, we'll reach out to you. But otherwise, if you check no, like I said, we appreciate any feedback that anyone can get back to us. And then if you ever do want to set up a meeting, there's another QR code for that and a link that's on the screen. Craig, I don't know if you have that link as well.
For Calendly, yeah, I can drop that too. And I did get somebody say the QR code for the last, probably the eval form wasn't working.
Nice. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. That means we just got to fix the link. See, that's what happens sometimes. The link just goes out on me. So appreciate that. So if you could use the link in the chat box for that, hopefully the QR code on the screen now works. But that's everything that we had. I know, Molly, Amanda, we tried to do it at 45 minutes, which I think we were about right on the 45 minutes from when we started up. So we'll open it up. I don't know if there's any questions in the chat box or if
there's one question in the Q&A box that I'm happy to ask if you would like to answer that.
Absolutely.
Great. So it says, what advice would you have for caregivers who are struggling to save for retirement? Are there funds or grants to help?
Yeah, as far as I know, there's no particular grants to help you with retirement because you're caring for somebody else. I think the issues you, once again, got to start looking at your budget, where you're spending money, where you're not. If you were in part of an employer plan, are you taking full advantage of the employer match? Sometimes people don't. They put in a certain amount of money and then there's still free money there. And then there's different retirement strategies. How do you want to retire? What do you want the retirement outcome to be? So it's a little different for everybody. We're happy to have that conversation with people as an individual and how to overcome that, or how to actually get yourself in a better position. But that's more of a one-on-one thing. But as far as I know, there's no grants to kind of supplement that.
Great. Well, if there are any other questions, feel free to put them in the chat and Q&A now. But if not, thank you both for that fantastic presentation, and thank you all for attending. We have some contact information in the chat as well. And if anyone has any questions, feel free to get in touch with the ARIES Foundation or with the Massachusetts Executive Office of Elder Affairs. We'll be having some upcoming webinars as well that you can register for in the chat as well. And if there's anything else you need, feel free to reach out.
Appreciate it, Amanda. Thank you, everybody. Have a great rest of the day.
Thank you, Molly.
Thank you. Take care.